everyone. It's Margaret Manning here with 60 and Me. This is the place where women who are aging beautifully come to be inspired. And my guest today is Valerie Ramsey. Now, Valerie has lived a fascinating and a very unconventional life. She was a mother, or is a mother of 6 children, and was a stay-at-home mom until her 50s when she started a real corporate job as a public relations job. And it wasn't until she was 60 that she was recruited as a model. And in combination with that, or at the same time, she went through some very serious medical challenges. So Valerie is the perfect person to talk to us about resilience and just bouncing back from challenges. But I really want to welcome you here, Valerie. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with you and all of your 60 and Me ladies. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to mention, as we got started with our conversation, that you have written 2 amazing books. Now, the first one is Gracefully Looking and Being Your Best at Any Age, which I love the title, that one. Yeah. And then you follow that up with Creating What's Next gracefully some years later. But I think as you... There you go. No, that's great. I mean, they are wonderful books, and I've actually taken a look at them. And of course, you do public speaking too. So you're out there, you're supporting and encouraging, empowering women.
Yes.
So
yes.
Our community is women over 60. And I think knowing your story now, Valerie, it would be wonderful if you took just a few minutes to tell us a little bit about your background and how that first book emerged and what you put into it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, as you mentioned, I was a stay-at-home mom with 6 children throughout my 20s, 30s, and 40s. But I knew as much as I wanted that, I also wanted to have a career of my own when the children were grown and out of the house. Yeah. And so when I was in my early 50s, we moved from Connecticut to California. And I decided, okay, Valerie, now it's your turn. And I went to Pebble Beach Resorts, which is on the Monterey Peninsula where we were living. And I got a job started at the bottom, in the pro shop selling golf balls with the college kids one summer.
Wow.
A few months later, I learned how to use a computer and I moved up into the marketing department. And after 4 years, I became an executive assistant and then was given the job of public relations manager. And that was when I was 58, I think. And so what happened was I was out on the golf course one day overseeing a photo shoot for a golf show. And the producer kept saying to me, I really love your looks. I think you should be doing something. We should send your pictures to a modeling agency. And I just laughed at him and I said, David, you're being a sleazy Hollywood producer. Forget about it. But he was pretty adamant and he did. And so... next thing I knew, I'd signed with a big agency in San Francisco, and then a little bit later on with Wilhelmina, and
that's awesome.
A few different things. But our local newspaper, when I was 63, I think, came to me and said, our readers would love to hear about a woman who, at this point I was the grandmother of 7, has become a model. And so at first I said no, but then I said, all right, you can go ahead and do it. And it got picked up off the national news wires and went all over the country. And as it bounced around from Chicago to Boston to Miami, so forth, I would start getting these wonderful emails from both men and women alike saying to me, I'm in my 50s or 60s, and I really didn't think there was anything left that I could do. I thought I was too old to create a new future for myself.
Right.
But I read your story, and I see that it's not too old. And so I would call my daughter, Heather Hummel, who is a writer. She was living in Virginia, and I would read her these beautiful emails. And she said, Mom, I think we've got the basis for a book here.
Yeah.
So she put together a proposal. She sent it to, I think, 4 different literary agents who specialized in memoirs in New York. The next thing we knew, it was picked up by a wonderful literary agency. We finished our proposal. They started shopping it to the top publishers in New York. And within, I think it was 2 weeks or something, McGraw-Hill picked it up. And they said, we love this. We're going to bring it out in our top 5 lead books for spring. So You know.
So I want to just stop you for a second there, because you said a lot that's very, very powerful. Now, you're talking now 20 years ago, well, 15, 18 years ago, and this is unusual for that time in our history as older women. It's not so unusual now because women over 70 are becoming more recognized for their skills and their talents and their wisdom. But it's really remarkable that you managed to, to pull that off. And I was going to ask you sort of what were the qualities that you think they saw in you that made you beautiful? Do you think it was your physical? You've got beautiful hair. You have a lovely smile. What was it?
I don't think it was physical. I could pass for attractive, but a supermodel, no way.
Yeah.
But I think, and I will talk about this some more, I think that, real beauty comes from the inside out, and one of the biggest factors in it is having self-confidence and being a joyful, happy person and exuding that to the people that you come in touch with.
Now, Valerie, you didn't have that confidence. So when you started here, I mean, you of course did because you were in a public relations job. You were developing your corporate skills. But tell us, and in your book, I'm sure it's mentioned that at the same time you were dealing with a medical diagnosis that was that would shatter your confidence.
Yeah. Well, first of all, when I first went into that job, I think I was 58 when I went to work the first time for Pebble Beach. Yeah. I didn't have a whole lot of self-confidence. My parents were divorced. I went to a boarding school from the time I was 7. I never really had a reason to put myself out there. And so, I just didn't believe in myself very much. But I found that the more I did put myself out there, the more I gave myself to a situation, the more confident I became.
Right. You sort of dived in. And that's actually something we're going to talk about in another conversation, because I think that resilience and that ability to bounce back despite, problems. But,
absolutely.
And I really love your story, though, about starting at that corporate level as selling golf balls. Because I remember
the college kids, and I took it at that time just to learn everything I possibly
Exactly. That's the thing.
The hospitality business. But you alluded to the health issues that I had, and I'll bring that up because it's kind of dramatic now, although it didn't seem so drama-filled at the time.
Yeah,
well, I did it in a different way. The very first week that I had the PR job at Pebble, one of my jobs was to oversee all of the big photo shoots that went on, and Cadillac had just become their new brand partner. So they sent a crew of about 100 up from LA to work with me for a week to produce print ads and commercials for Cadillac. I had agreed to meet them out on that famous 7th hole that's out into the ocean. And I was running out there at 5 o'clock in the morning to meet them all. It was still dark. The cart path was kind of slippery. And I stumbled on the edge of it and fell flat on my face, broke my foot, sprained my ankle. I mean, it was just a horrible Calamity Jane introduction. But luckily, there was a groundskeeper nearby, and he came and helped me up, put me in his cart and took me out, and we carried on. It worked out okay. The next day, we were shooting around the beautiful pool at the Beach and Tennis Club at the lodge at Pebble Beach. And the music was playing, and this darling young couple was horsing around at the edge of the pool. And then he pushed her in black tie, and he jumped in afterwards. And just then, my cell phone rang, and it was my gynecologist, and he was calling to tell me that the tests he had run the previous week showed that I had uterine cancer. And he said, we're scheduling a complete hysterectomy for next week. So he said, I want you to come down to my office tomorrow, and we'll just do some pre-op testing.
Wow.
So, wow. I'm on crutches. I'm hobbling with my injury. Went down to his office, and we put a stethoscope on my chest. He said, I'm hearing a very unusual arrhythmia. I can't touch you until I've sent you to a cardiologist. And it turned out I had something called viral cardiomyopathy, which is when a virus attacks the your heart muscle. Could be a cold virus or anything, innocuous like that. But what happens was the heart muscle, instead of contracting nice and strong, mine was going at only 20% like that. So here I was, down 3 for 3. on the first week of my brand new job that I had wanted so much at Pebble Beach. And people were saying, are you going to retire, and not do this? Because it's here. Pebble Beach is a huge property with 3 hotels and 4 golf courses and so forth. And I said, no, absolutely not. Quitting is not an option. I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to make the second half of my life just as phenomenal as the first half has been. And that's what happened. Shortly after that, I got discovered for modeling, although I have to, tell you that I certainly didn't give up my Pebble Beach job. That was my dream career. But I took up modeling things, and then, the newspaper article came out, and I was invited to go on the Today Show, I think 5 different times, and, became a public speaker and so on and so forth.
Okay. So Valerie, we've got lots of women in our community who are going to be probably both thinking, oh my gosh, how did that woman manage all of that? I'm in a similar situation. I've really almost given up, and she's giving me, just listening to her is amazing. And then others that say, well, you had a lot of great opportunities, and you made good use of them. But you mentioned in your books that there's tips, there's things that from all of that you learned. And talking now to the women that are watching this in our 60andMe community, what tips would you give them? What life lessons did you learn?
Well, they're based on my book, Creating What's Next Gracefully.
Right.
I jotted down 7 of the biggest ones for the ladies today. The first thing I have to say is I discovered when I went through all of this that, hey, wow, 53 is not the end of the road. It can really be the start of a whole new beginning, a whole new chapter, as you like to say. Life begins at middle age. So, based on that, the first thing I would say to them is opportunities expand in proportion to our courage to seek them out. We have to just keep our eyes and ears open, because the world is full of great things for us. We just have to pay attention to what's going on around there.
Okay.
So that would
pay attention.
Yes. The second thing I would tell them would be, don't let who you were define who you are. I think that's really powerful. I have to tell you, I read that in Sports Illustrated years ago, and it really
it is a good message. Yeah.
Oh, that is so good. It's so true. So trust your instincts. When you hear about an opportunity or you think about something, pay attention to that gut feeling that you get. If you get butterflies of excitement and you think to yourself, wow, I'd love to do that, go for it.
And don't assume that if you didn't do it in the past, if you weren't able to do it in the past, that you're not going to be able to do it in the future. There's a new opportunity for you. There's a new you waiting for that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So you give it some thought, and then you take the best of what you've been thinking. You have your thoughts, transform those into words, start writing it down and really putting some reality to it. Right. And then talk about it to your friends, because when we start to talk about something, it becomes a reality. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah. There's accountability. It's like when, you just, then what you own it. Like once you've declared it to the world, then you own the opportunity.
So it's thoughts, words, action.
Yeah.
Number 4 is you have to power past your fear if you are going to make a success of this. Now, Eleanor Roosevelt said something once that I absolutely love. She said, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you truly stop to look fear in the face. Mm-hmm. You must do the thing which you think you cannot do.
Yeah, it's a great point.
I almost get goosebumps now, even just saying it, because it is so true. And I've had to do that myself so much. And then when I've done it, I think, wow, that wasn't so bad after all, And then I think, confidence to do it again.
It's so true. The fear of doing something is 10 times worse than the actual doing it once you're in there. So that's 4. What's 5?
So number 5 is visualize yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
You know how Olympic athletes, they work with sports psychologists and they visualize themselves, running this amazing race or, flying down the ski trails or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have to do that with yourself in your new career. Visualize yourself going into that, having fun with it, learning a lot, and making a great success of it. So that's number 5.
That's good.
Number 6, and I think this is so important, Margaret, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. You will be amazed at how often people will step up and give it to you. So really.
That is very, very true, actually. People, when they retire, they often think they've got no connections and they're lost in space. But in fact, they've got more connections after they've retired. But all that accumulation. And I found that, like you say, in fact, if you ask people to help you, in a way that, is reciprocal and that is positive, that's the most powerful way of getting someone engaged in your life. It's powerful.
I have a really short, funny story to share with you about asking for what you want. When I first became public relations manager,
right.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
And Pebble Beach was bought by Clint Eastwood, Peter Ueberroth, Dick Ferris, and Arnold Palmer. So as soon as they purchased it, Peter Ueberroth and Clint Eastwood came to me and they said, we would like, excuse me 1 second, just a quick
go for it. Go for it. And I'm going to have a drink too. We'll have one together. Actually, folks, one thing is that Valerie and I are both in very hot climates today. I'm in a very abnormal hot climate in Switzerland, but she's in Florida, which is, of course, used to the sun. But your throat does get dry. Are you okay now?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we had 6, and then was it 6 or 7?
We are on number 6.
Okay. These are really valuable, by the way. Thank you for going through them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope they help, some people and give them inspiration and ideas.
For sure.
So this is when the big 4 purchased Pebble Beach: Clint Eastwood, Arnold Palmer, Peter Ueberroth, and Dick Ferris. And Peter Ueberroth, who had brought the whole licensing idea to the Olympics in '86 in Los Angeles, sponsorships. They said, we'd like you to come up with a fun way to bring Pebble Beach onto television for our viewers that would not have anything to do with a golf tournament.
Right.
And so I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could get Oprah to come out and just play one hole of golf with Clint Eastwood? And so I thought to myself, that's all order. But, nothing ventured. So I called her offices in Chicago, and it took some doing, but we pulled it off, and she came out and she played the 18th hole with Clint.
That's fun. See, you have to be brave, and like you said back in 3 or 4, overcoming your fears. And so finally, what's the last one, Valerie? I think it's very useful.
The last one really is to recognize an opportunity, because opportunities are out there. When a door opens, grab it, walk through it. Yeah. And I would just like to, I have a wonderful quote by a polar explorer by the name of Ben Saunders. He said, I've got it here right next to me. Yeah. He said, if I've learned anything in nearly 12 years now of dragging heavy things around cold places, it is that true, real inspiration and growth only comes from adversity and from challenge, from stepping away from what's comfortable and familiar and stepping out into the unknown.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
Isn't that great?
That's a great quote. It reminds me actually of a quote by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I don't know if you remember. She's the woman who wrote about death and dying, and did some great work. And it was about beautiful people come from adversity. And
Yeah.
anyway, this has been an awesome conversation, Valerie. We've got some other things we're going to chat about. But for now, I hope that you have been inspired by Valerie's conversation. Check out her website. It's valerieramsey.com. Yes? Yeah, and of course the books we'll put in the bottom of the video here so that you can check those out too. But Valerie Ramsey, it's been just great chatting with you. You're a superhero. And by the way, just so you don't, in case you're wondering who that beautiful young woman is, Valerie is going to be 80 years old in a few months. Can you believe this? The energy is fantastic. Thank you so much, Valerie. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Our Patreon supporters help us to make a bigger difference in the lives of women over 60 all around the world. They get exclusive videos, live video shows, discounts, and much more. So please look for the link on this page. It is somewhere down here, up there. And join our tribe of women in our 60andMe community who are actually making a big difference in the world, challenging aging stereotypes. So thank you so much for your support.